And the unit I was talking about at the end of the last video is Seijiro Hiko, Kenshin's master, the man, the myth, the legend, the guy that actually carries the true title of the master of the Hiten Mitsurugi style, Seijiro Hiko, my friends. So this isn't probably a huge revelation for anybody watching the show for a first time that Kenshin, as a swordsman, had to have been trained, right? He didn't just pick up a sword and start swinging it around and all of a sudden he's the most badass character ever and goes on to become Hitokiri Batosai. No, somebody had to teach Kenshin all of his skills. And we finally meet that man in this episode, Season 2, Episode 11, where we're introduced, in the story anyways, to Kenshin's master. Now, there is a lot of debate in the Kenshin fandom, as there always have been, about who is the most powerful character, because unlike a shonen series like Dragon Ball or Naruto or something where you have kind of a more obvious power scaling, where you have bigger, more powerful characters, in Kenshin, they're all pretty much swordsmen, right? So it kind of depends on who has the most skill, who has the most knowledge in battle, who's the most adaptable, who's the fastest, what is the circumstances in which they're fighting, what is the location in which they're fighting, how long have they been doing this, you know, and then obviously their pure physical strength also counts for a lot as well. But it's a little bit trickier to kind of rank who you think is the strongest Kenshin character, because it's like, how are you ranking the idea of strongest? But if you are asking me for my opinion, for whatever that's worth, I think Seijiro Hiko is the most powerful character in the entire series. Now, you could definitely debate this, and with things that happen later on, you know, there is some evidence to say, well, this character or that character, but I truly do believe Seijiro Hiko is the strongest, maybe a little past his prime, but I would always give that mantle to Seijiro Hiko if I had to pick one. If I absolutely had to, gun to my head, who do I think is the strongest Kenshin character in terms of everything about combat encapsulated all into one man? I would go for this guy. Now, to step back a little bit and talk about the actual episode as opposed to that, this is the second person that Kenshin was looking for once he got to Kyoto. The first person was Shaku Arai, who had passed away, bestowed his talents down to his son, and left that final reverse blade sword that Kenshin found and used in this fight with Cho. Now, the second guy that he was looking for is Seijiro Hiko, who has now taken up the talent of being a potter, which works out well for him because he's incredibly antisocial and doesn't like dealing with people, and it's something he can do to make money where he can stay far away from civilization. And I respect that about him because that's kind of what I would want to do. Hell, that is actually what I want to do. Someday, if I can afford some kind of nice cabin or house up in the woods that still manages to somehow get a decent internet connection, I would totally do that because I love avoiding humanity. And that's why, another reason why Hiko is my guy. So Kenshin is able to find him, but they don't exactly have a heartwarming reunion. I think probably the most telling about this episode, if you're watching Kenshin for the first time or going through the story for the first time, is that you're finding out that Kenshin never even completed his training. He was too wound up with the ideals of what was going on in the outside world, what was going on with the war that was happening, and the chaos of Japan at the time, and wanting to do something about it. And since the Hiten Mitsurugi style that he trains in very much emphasizes the idea of being able to protect people or, you know, save them from despair in some way, Kenshin is like, well, this is the perfect opportunity to use what you taught me in order to try to go do something better for people, to try to help people, right? Although Hiko himself, the true master of Hiten Mitsurugi, had different ideas about what this meant. But I think it is really interesting to find out that all the incredible things that we've seen Kenshin do so far, all the battles that he's been doing this with incomplete training. Okay, so there is more to the Hiten Mitsurugi style that Kenshin has yet to learn, and I always found that to be a very just a fun revelation to have this far into the series, where you just imagine that he is this master, and he is very much so in his own way, but not the true master of his particular style. Even more telling is that the name Seijiro Hiko is not this man's actual name. It is a title that is bestowed upon you once you do master the swordsmanship style. So Kenshin would be named Sejiro Hiko if he had completed his training. What I also find to be very fascinating about Sejiro Hiko is his philosophy with swordsmanship, because he is one of the few characters that can really put Kenshin in his place and tell him what's what, and basically say, yeah, you are kind of to blame for everything that's happening right now. You know, as much guilt as Kenshin feels, there are so many characters that try to kind of get him out of that. Like Misao is like, I don't care who you once were. You know, the man I met is the RUROUNI, is the Kenshin that I know. And Kenshin reflects that that's very similar to the things that Kaoru has said to him. And, you know, Sanosuke has been very supportive of him. But when he goes to his master Hiko that he walked out on when he was a kid, Hiko's like, listen, you little shit. Like, this is what happens. Like, this is why you did not understand my training. And yeah, you did kind of bring this upon yourself. And those are harsh words to hear, especially from somebody that, you know, you owe so much gratitude to, because as we'll find out, you know, Hiko, I mean, he did a lot of good for Kenshin when Kenshin was young. So you'll find that out pretty soon. But, with that, you know, as this kind of parental figure, in a way, it's like, well, as comforting and as good as you can be to him, they're also the people that can be the most disappointed in you when you do something wrong and have it hit the hardest. And many people might actually disagree with Hiko's philosophy, but essentially what it comes down to is the first thing that he reminds Kenshin is that swordsmanship is a means of killing, which is something that Kenshin said in the very first episode when he was talking to Kaoru and how she has her whole school of swordsmanship based upon wooden swords. He's like, swordsmanship is the skill of learning how to kill somebody. And no matter how nicely you dress that up, the underlying truth of what it is it's a method to kill. Swords are forged to slay. And the other thing that he talks about is, although the Hita Mitsurugi style is specifically developed to try to protect and try to help people, it's not supposed to have a bias. So to fight for an ideal, to fight for a particular side in a war, to use that skill to bring forth somebody else's ideas, you know, for something, I guess, larger than yourself. The Hita Mitsurugi style is meant to be a little bit more like a case-by-case scenario, a case-by-case basis. Like, when you encounter somebody that needs help, you help them. So Hiko is basically saying, we don't pick sides. We don't fight for idealism. We don't fight in the name of somebody else or in the name of what other people are trying to create. It is literally a case-by-case basis of helping those in need. And as Kenshin went into war and used his skills to help the imperialists, he brought forth, you know, these kind of ghosts of the past. He brought forth the Batosai that he became. When he was no longer the Batosai, somebody had to pick up that mantle. Therefore, they found Shishio. And when that side eventually won, although, again, they are trying to make things better for people in a way, they still had to hide all of their dirty work in the past, which means when it comes to Shishio, they tried to assassinate him so that nobody would know the secrets, you know, the darker secrets of what they had to do to accomplish winning the victory. And even though Kenshin is not responsible for that in a direct way, you know, he was involved with it, and it all kind of cycles around the same ideas. It all cycles around the same kind of people. Like, you're all involved in the same scenario. Had Kenshin not gone, you know, who knows what would have happened? You know, he didn't necessarily single-handedly help them win the war, but it was definitely a clutch. You know what I mean? It was definitely something that allowed in this story, like, not in real history, Kenshin didn't exist, but in this story, because of Batosai existing, it led the way. It led the charge in many ways. So yeah, his involvement did kind of, in a way, create a domino effect that led us to where we are right now, where Hiko was like, listen, you little shit, you stay here, you train, you finish your training, you become the next successor, and you help people when they need it, and then you train the next successor. Like, it's a thing that's been going on for probably hundreds and hundreds of years, and you fucked it up. Now, going outside of that, on the other side of the episode, we have a chance meeting, which is different from the 90s version, by the way. I don't want to forget to say that. So in the 90s Kenshin version, they kind of speed this segment along a little bit. I don't know if it was for pacing or just some creative decision or whatnot, but when Kenshin leaves the Aoya, he already knows where Hiko is and he's going to go find him. There's no moment with the flare gun to let him come back. And as he leaves, Misao chases him out and tries to follow him through the city streets, which is so packed she can't find him. And then she runs into Yahiko, like they knock into each other as they're running. And that's how she meets Yahiko and Kaoru in the 90s version. This version, of course, follows the manga, where Okina's like, just go out, have a good meal. Kenshin's going to go do his own thing. I know you want to help him and support him, but like he chose to take this on by himself, so just go distract yourself. And she happens to go to the, what is it? Not the Shirabeko, yes. And this is where Kaoru and Yahiko are staying and also working. Funny moments with Yahiko having to wear the apron and everything, and that's how she meets them. So that is the way it's done in the manga, different from the 90s version. And essentially, Okina helps her out once he sees Kaoru and Yahiko are there for Kenshin, and they go all the way up to Hiko's hut in the woods as well, and the episode ends with them hearing Hiko talk shit about Kenshin, and they're like, what the hell? They knock down the door. I always thought that was really funny, too. Just, it shows how much they respect Kenshin, that they're like, who's this guy talking shit to him? And then Kenshin turns around, and he is face-to-face with Kaoru, the one woman that he said goodbye to before he left Tokyo, the only person he said goodbye to that meant that much to him, that he didn't want to draw into this battle, into this situation. He wanted to, let her live in peace as he took this on himself. But she, after a pep talk from Megumi, has traveled her way to Kyoto, and now they're face-to-face once again. And in story time, this maybe has been like, I don't know how long this has actually been, maybe like a month. I'm not really sure. So not too long, but long enough that it's going to be interesting to see them kind of face-to-face again. And by the way, by the end of this episode, Hiko still has not accepted to take Kenshin on as his pupil again and train him in the final techniques. He's just like, no, we're not doing that. Now, just to give you guys a little tease, I checked in the manga to make sure that we're on track. The next episode is gonna continue this little story for a little bit, and then we're gonna shift to another character who has made his way to Kyoto. I won't say who, but a lot of good stuff to come from that. So yes, like this episode a lot. It's great to see Seijiro Hiko. What a great character, man. I can't wait to get more into him as well throughout the rest of the season. So let me know what you guys thought of this episode. If you're a new Kenshin fan, what do you think of Hiko's introduction? He's kind of a Giga Chad in his own way, I would say. And where do you think it's going to go from here? Longtime Kenshin fans, let me know what you thought about this version compared to the 90s or the manga. As always, guys, thanks for watching these reviews. Give it a thumbs up and a comment. Thank you, everybody that left a super thanks last time. Really makes these videos worth it, man. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week.